everyone. Abigail Gibbons here again for our next WOW interview. Today we're sitting down with Oge Zogie, based out of London. She is a life coach and consultant. I've had the pleasure of getting to know not only her, but her family, and have brought all of them into the WOW Women Network. And we're going to be talking about her story to navigating what's next. As you may or may not know, our next event in April 21 is going to be talking about what's next and how you navigate that next chapter, whether it's starting a business, taking a career transition. And Oge is an expert in helping professionals and women take that next step. And we're going to really dive into women who are just feeling a bit stuck in their careers or feeling like there's some higher purpose for them out there, but having trouble making that transition. She's here to help you and guide you with that. And she'll also be speaking at our event where we're going to dive into it more. I'm so excited to talk with you about this topic, Oge, because, you know, when I first started my career, I actually worked with a friend who was a life coach, and she just kind of pushed me and was that support arm for, you can do this, and here's how you can do this. I think so often we just need one person to kind of believe in us and tell us it's okay to do that and take that next step. So before we get into all that, if you could please introduce yourself, I would love to introduce you to our network.
Oh, thank you so much, Abigail. Thank you for that introduction. I was like, who is she talking about? But thank you so much. It's lovely to be here. I'm a lover of learning, especially through conversations like the one we're going to have and conversations about people's experiences. I think that's such a fabulous way to learn. And I think that you provide such a great platform to be able to do that. So that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm excited about April the 3rd. So yeah, introducing myself. My first career, which I like to call my take one, began in primary education. So I was a primary school teacher and a primary school leader. And over a period of about 15 years, I did a lot of things in the school environment. So from teaching children, from raising their attainment, from improving the profile of subjects in school, from equipping teachers to be able to improve teaching and learning, and just lead all sorts of school improvement initiatives. So I've been able to do all those things. And I love my teaching career. I loved it because no 2 days are the same. If you work with kids, you will know this. No 2 days are the same. Kids can challenge you. Kids can entertain you. And when I think about the school environment, it's like a lab where you see all the results from experiments in mindset, experiments in potential, opportunity, and growth, so much growth. And I think when I look back on that career, that's what I really, really take from it. I see that anything is possible just with the right combination of all those things that I've mentioned. And so I enjoyed it, but there came a time when I felt like I wanted to do something more. I yearned to do something more. I didn't know what that was. And I spent a number of years trying to figure out what that was. And, you know, I would try and I would push out of my mind. I would try and push out of my mind. And eventually, when I come to talk about my challenge proved to be actually the catalyst to help me change my career out of teaching. So I did move out of teaching and I moved into business improvement, which wasn't really what I matched myself to be within at first. I did a little bit of, because I like to be practical. So I looked at what aligned with what skills that I had, and I thought I'd go into HR or learning and development, but somehow I ended up in business improvement. And I think that has a lot of similarities with this classroom environment that I hadn't seen, or the school environment, because it deals a lot with changing people, changing processes, and trying to improve. So I think I found my take two in this arena, and I'm really enjoying it. I work on projects in the public sector, especially where we just, you know, look at where processes are broken and try and improve them to make them more efficient. And then what I would call my take three is life coaching. So, you know, when I said I didn't quite know the change that I wanted to make, I knew I wanted to make a change. I didn't quite know, and I didn't even feel like I was able to. So I had the benefit of coaching. And when I saw the power of that, I felt like, gosh, I needed to do more of this. I needed more of this. And so I went and I trained. I got a diploma in life coaching. And so now I support women, especially women who want to embark on any kind of change in their life, to just, like you were saying, sometimes we need that support, that extra hand to help us believe in ourselves. All the work is us doing it, but it's just that extra person cheering you on to help you.
Yeah.
So I work with women, and I do this kind of work with them. So that's me in a
Wonderful.
nutshell.
So much, okay, so much to dive into here. And as we all say, or we all know, change is the only constant in life, right?
That's
But
right.
it's often so hard for us to do, especially when we've gotten into our comfort zones. And I'm sure you
Mm,
do this with the clients that you work with, but as women, we can be even more pulled into a routine of taking care of other people and not necessarily taking care of ourselves, or feeling
yeah,
the pressure to do this, this, and this, to be a good mom, to be a good parent, to be a good employee, sister, friend, all of those different things. And I really love that you've made a career out of change. And that when you were talking, it reminded me of another quote that Sandra Marks said with us a couple weeks ago, and it's just get uncomfortable being uncomfortable, which
yeah,
really applies to get uncomfortable with change. Like life is always changing and leading us in different directions. And
yeah,
I'd love to hear more when you were telling us about you in your introduction. What led you to take two was actually navigating that challenge in your career. So I
yeah,
would love to hear more about what that was for
yeah.
everyone else watching. And I'm sure many of us can learn from this as well.
Okay. So yeah. So what I feel funny calling it a challenge, but like I said to you, it's a challenge and it's a catalyst.
Uh-huh.
I would say that starting a family
Mm-hmm.
has been my biggest challenge in my career today. And at the same time, it has been the biggest catalyst for all the changes that I have made in my life. And I chose to share that because I know it's very common with women. It's a very common thing that women experience. I decided to raise a family with my husband.
Mm-hmm.
The way that raising a family has affected my career has not affected his in the same way.
Mm,
And I think that's just, it's not a blame fest. It's just the way that it is.
yeah.
And when I think about that, I think about when I was juggling being a teacher and having my young children. I would drop one of my children. Bear in mind, teachers have to be at school in early enough.
Yeah.
Not at 9 o'clock, a lot earlier than 9 o'clock. So I'd drop one child one end of town. I would have to drive about 40 minutes if there was
Oh my
traffic
God.
to the other end to drop the other child. Then I'd drive again to go to work. And every day on those journeys, I tell you, my blood pressure was probably, high. And I was always stressed.
Yeah.
And it was always stressing me out. And I felt like it got to a point when I'd said I wanted to leave teaching, but I didn't know where to go. But then this happened, and I just felt like I cannot continue this, and I cannot keep up with this lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I cannot. Every time I'm driving, I feel like I'm rushing. I feel like I have to be somewhere on this time. So that was the push that made me think, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to come out, even though I don't know what I'm going to do, but I just cannot commit to another school year of doing this with my young children. So they were a challenge. Raising them was a challenge in terms of childcare, but then they were also the catalyst that started my change. So when I changed and I decided I wasn't going to be a teacher anymore, I didn't know what I was going to do next. So I had a period where I was a stay-at-home mom. And you talked about having people in your life to support you. My husband was one of those people, and he said to me, and a few friends as well were really encouraging, and they said, take time to figure out what you really want to do. Just take this time to think, maybe give yourself about 6 months. And so in those 6 months, I was a stay-at-home mom, and I was sometimes I'd feel this, smug feeling of, yes, I'm such a good mother because I'm at every meeting, I'm at every show, I'm every event, I'm there. And I'd feel really proud. And other times I'd feel really small because I'd look at all my friends achieving things in their career, and I just think, well, I'm
Yeah.
not really achieved. My career has stopped. So I was always fleeting between those two feelings.
Yeah.
And It was really challenging. It was very difficult. And I think those come about because of society's expectations that
Mhm.
have been put on women, like you say, the expectations to be the nurturer, the main caregiver. And therefore, when you're doing it, you feel really great. But then again, there's expectation for you to also, I somehow subconsciously equated success
Mhm.
as career achievement. And I wasn't seeing it as anything else but that.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was struggling with those feelings.
Yeah.
And I think I've since learned that rather than being pulled by these expectations of society and let that dictate your feelings, it's really important for you to think about what is important to you.
Mhm.
Because there are people who really believe that it's important for them to be at home for those number of years for their children, and that is fine.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't be made to feel like they're not advancing or they're not achieving things because of that.
Of course.
And I think I had those feelings because of what I had taken from society, and I've since unlearned them, and I'm grateful for that. And that's what I try to share with other people as well, that you have to identify your own measure of success in whatever it is you are doing. Your success can look different to person B's success. And therefore, you have to identify that by yourself based on what is important to you, what your values are. So that I would say was one of my challenges. And again, a place where I was able to grow so much out of. And when I think about a second challenge, again, it's another one that is internal.
Mhm.
I feel this one it had to do with how I saw myself, how I positioned myself, and how I use my voice. And a lot of that came out when I was trying to transition from teaching to a different career. I did all that work of aligning my skills and reaching out to recruiters, but then I wasn't getting anything back. In fact, I was getting teaching job offers. And I was like, did you not see my profile where I'd written how I want to transition? And they
Yeah.
just ignored all that. And I felt deflated. I felt like I started to question, maybe I'm not good for anything else
Mhm.
but teaching. And maybe I've made a mistake. And I started to have all these, self-doubt experiences and feelings. And that wasn't good. And I think about this and I think there is a space for something to be done about this, because like I said to you, I work with an organization who their main objective is to help career changers who are at the peak of maybe another professional career to come into teaching.
Mhm.
And I work with them, I talk to them about their motivations, I interview them, and when we are just so happy to have them because we just think it's such a great thing to be able to transfer skills from one
Yeah.
place to another.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, the goal of the school environment or education is to prepare, one of the goals is to prepare young children for the world of work.
Mhm.
So what better way is there than to connect the two worlds? So we're so happy to have these
Right.
professionals come into teaching, but there's hardly anything out there going the other way around.
Right.
Helping
Right.
teachers go into other professions. There's hardly anything out there. And I think that there's such a space for that, because I really struggled. What helped me was networking,
Mhm.
just talking to people and saying, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do, and this is how I came about. I met someone and then I got my opportunity that
Mhm.
got me into the world of business improvement where I am today. So I think though, with that positioning myself, I think all that stuff came from, again, subconscious conditioning. I
Mhm.
was told things like, you shouldn't blow your own trumpet. You
Yeah.
should, pride goes before a fall. Things like, let your work speak for itself. I took all these things I took them in, and so I struggled when I was in teaching. I guess I got over them because I racked up years. So I felt like, yes, I'm a veteran, so I can speak up. I can use my voice because I've sort of earned it. And that's why when I look at you and the work that you do, I feel so proud, because we need to teach young people to use their voice. You don't have to have been 20 something years in there before you
Yeah.
have a voice. You don't have to have done one of my bosses told me, who do you think experts are? Experts are just people that are
Yeah.
doing the same thing that you're doing and doing it very well and speaking about it. And I don't think that I had that. I never had that kind of a mindset. I thought you need to earn your badges before you
Yep.
use your voice. You need to earn your badges before you get seen and you get heard. And there's fault in that.
Yeah.
And that is, for nowadays it's called imposter syndrome. It made me feel like an imposter, and I
Yeah.
struggled with that. I felt like, I'm just, even when I got my role, I was like, oh, these people think I'm a project manager. I'm just a teacher in disguise. They're gonna find out soon. But I just closed my eyes to all the skills that I had and all the experiences that I had. So even when I started life coaching, I had the same issue
Yeah.
of who are you to be talking to these people? But
Yeah.
even a friend said to me, a well-meaning friend said to me, oh no, good coaches, they have to have been through trauma for them
Yeah.
to be
Or they
successful.
have to have all these
I
different
yeah,
certifications or
yeah. She
yeah.
said, I don't think you've been through the kind of trauma that will make you a good coach. I know she was well-meaning, but it's
Yeah.
all these things that society tells you that you really have got to. I mean, thank goodness with coach training, I was able to work through a lot of these things.
Mhm.
And that is why I love what I do now, because I can help other people work through those feelings of,
Yeah.
I'm not enough and I'm different, when, that's not true.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's what I would say with the big challenges
Mhm.
that I experienced, especially with my career changing, and yeah, that's it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Oge. And we already kind of dove into some of the advice too there. And one piece
Yes.
that I love is reminding and other women through your own journey to unlearn some of the things that we've just been taught to learn simply just by being, born a woman in society and the expectations that have been placed on us for generation after generation. I think it's so important to unlearn that imposter syndrome, that self-doubt. And
Yeah.
I love what you said about find internally how to measure your own success because
Mhm.
I see this too, and my mother was a stay-at-home mom her whole life, and it is a full-time job. I don't know how she did it. And
Yeah.
we spoke with Rita in our last interview, and she told us her story about how she had a great professional career, but then when she left to be a mom and then came back to the workforce, all everyone doubted was, oh, what's this gap in your resume? Or you doubted that what you were
Mhm.
raising a family, you weren't working. When I think so many of us, and I think all of us at the end of the day agree that being a mother, being a parent is a very challenging job.
Yeah.
But we also are taught, that if we do that full time or we take time off, whatever it might be, that we're not being successful in our careers and our other personal
Yeah.
lives. And I
Yeah.
love your reminder, and it applies to not everyone, not just mothers, but it's a great example, but just remembering what is your own measure of success. And
Mhm.
that's something that I've had to do, as you know, too, being an entrepreneur and
Mhm.
inviting all of these different and incredible women into our network and learning other organizations that are out there similar to us. Sometimes I can get lost and I'm not
Yeah.
doing what this person is doing or that or
Yeah.
that, or I'm not good
Yeah.
enough and I don't have this, I wasn't featured here. And I've just, through practice and honestly, mentors like yourself and other mentors in my community just remind me to, Abby, put your blinders on. What's your success? Just because so and so is doing this and you see it on social media or whatever it might be, why do you feel like you need to do that? And it's just asking yourself, like, when you start to get those feelings of self-doubt or anxiety or, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this, it's just pausing and reflecting has been such a game changer for me. And finding that internal goals of success, of happiness for yourself. And I love what you said too about unlearning, the expectations that others might think of us or society might think of us.
Mhm.
And your story about your friend is so relatable too, right? I think often when we want to start something new or different,
Yeah.
always, and it's because they care, or at least
Yeah.
that's my mindset. If anyone is
Yeah.
doubting me or asking a question, it's because they care, they want the best for you. But that's such an excellent example of, also needing to unlearn other people's doubts or criticisms and stay, going back to what you just said, of staying true to who you are and what your goals are and what you know and believe in yourself. And the work that you're doing is so important to help one by one other women learn that and have that support system. I needed it, I still need it, and I learned so much from you too in our whenever we talk or get together. And I just think it's so important to have that support system and also break down the stigmas that you have to have a certain trauma or something like this to be a life coach, and also kind of bring more awareness to around the industry and why it is legitimate and important. So
Yeah.
with that said, do you have any other advice that you'd like to share, or that kind of cover it with
Yeah,
challenge.
well, I think the biggest thing that came out for me was, I can sum it up with the words, drive your own life.
Mm,
That's what I would say. And underneath that, that means a lot of things. I wrote an ebook called Drive Your Life. And I just think it sums up everything. And like you say, it involves challenge expectations around you. Don't do it just to be a troublemaker, but do it because you want to know, are they yours or are they just what you've inherited?
right.
And by asking it, like you say, self question, asking yourself questions. Why do I want to do this thing? Is it because everyone's doing it, or does it really mean something to me?
Hmm.
And I would say also, map out your life. I think it was Napoleon that said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Hmm.
And I, for a long time, I didn't map out my life. I just felt like, yes, I landed a job, and yes, I've got this job, and I didn't think, okay, I'm going to stay here this number of years, I'm going to do this, I'm going to. And it's not a bad thing to do, to have a plan so that you are, steering your own ship, so to speak,
Hmm.
and have that plan for your life, not just in career, in other aspects of your life.
Yeah.
People might say, oh yes, or by, especially in culture that I'm from, people
Yeah.
will say, oh yeah, it's time for you to get married, but that's not for somebody else to tell you.
Hmm.
That's for you to tell yourself
Mm,
when you want to do that.
yeah.
And just, again, know your worth and use your voice. You don't have to be a veteran before you can start speaking. We all have something. I have this thing that, yeah, you can learn from anybody, no matter how young, no matter how old, no matter how inexperienced. If we can learn from our children, then we can learn from each other. And so people shouldn't feel like they need to be at a certain space or age or stage before they can say or contribute. We can all contribute. So I guess those are the three things I would say under that whole umbrella of be the driver of your own life.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so important. And one piece that I love that we're talking about here too is breaking down the idea that you need to have a certain age, experience,
Yes.
years, career under your belt to begin speaking out. And that's been something that I've really pushed myself to do more of, thanks to women like you, because I've met and brought in all of these different women into the Wow Network, and I've learned and heard exactly what you're saying. Why can't I use my voice now? Like,
Yeah.
who's telling me not to?
Yeah.
I have something to say and I'm going to say it. And it also comes with like flexing that muscle. Like, it can feel uncomfortable no matter what age you are to start speaking out against the issues that you care about.
Mm.
But it's important and it needs to be done. And I also think, there's so much pressure to say this on social media or say this outside of social media. But as long as you are using your voice in whatever way feels right to you, is it at work? Is it with your friends? Is it with your family? Is it on social media? Ask yourself those questions. And going back to the summary of our whole conversation is ask yourself those questions and do what's right for you. You
Yeah.
don't have to do what society or social media is telling you to do, but find your own opinions and do the research or have the conversations.
Mhm.
And honestly, conversations like this, have what also helps educate me by learning through the stories and
Yeah.
experiences of those different. And then having the conversations about it, and using that to form all of my opinions. And um, this is a whole topic that I'm sure we'll get into in our conversation too. But every time in a Wow series conversations, whether we're talking about career or personal advice, we do always kind of tie it back to this piece that you mentioned. And that's why I love having what I call everyday activists or change makers like you in our series, because it's anyone can have a voice, and in any conversation, if we can just float in these greater issues about issues with our society, like stereotypes placed on women or colorism, all of that. It's so important to have those. And then in having those, you learn how to use your voice. So thank you so much, Oge, for being one of those women who have helped me, have the confidence to step up and get uncomfortable and have these conversations interculturally, interracially, and really, just showing that we can all come together no matter what we look like or who we are, where we come from, to
That's
help and
right.
support each other in all these challenges.
That's right. Thank you so much for having me. It's so good. Like I said, I love learning from conversations. I learn from
Mhm.
you all the time, from the
Oh,
panel.
thank
I'm
you.
so excited just to
Yes,
hear more and learn more. So thank
definitely.
you.